It was a long time ago on the rugged coast of a quiet little village where the waves crashed against jagged rocks and the salty breeze carried stories of faraway lands. Amidst this serene setting stood the Admiral Benbow Inn. It wasn't much, a modest building with creaky wooden floors and windows that rattled in the wind. But to Jim Hawkins and his family, it was home. Jim was a clever, curious boy, not much older than 14, who helped his parents manage the inn. He served customers, cleaned tables, and listened to the fascinating stories that travelers brought with them. Life was simple, but not easy. His parents worked tirelessly, and Jim often dreamed of adventures beyond the horizon. One stormy evening, as the rain lashed against the windows and the fireplace crackled warmly, the door of the inn burst open. A giant of a man stepped inside, soaking wet and shrouded in a tattered cloak. He had an air of menace about him. His boots were heavy with mud, and his face bore a long, jagged scar that cut through one cheek like a cruel reminder of violence. The man slammed a few coins onto the counter and growled, "Room and board. Name's Billy Bones." His voice was rough, like the grinding of stones, and his eyes seemed to pierce through anyone who dared to meet his gaze. He carried with him a heavy iron chest that clinked ominously as he walked. Jim couldn't take his eyes off the chest. What could be inside, he wondered, but he didn't dare ask. Billy stayed at the inn, though he was far from a welcome guest. By day he sat by the window, staring out at the ships on the horizon as though watching for someone or something. By night he drank himself into oblivion, his loud voice filling the room with drunken sea shanties. When others tried to join in or question him, he would lash out with fists or harsh words. His temper was like a storm, unpredictable and fierce. Despite his brutish ways, Jim was intrigued by Billy. The tales he told of pirate ships, buried treasure, and treacherous seas captured the boy's imagination. But there was one story that sent chills down Jim's spine. One night, as the fire burned low and shadows danced on the walls, Billy leaned close to Jim. His breath reeked of rum as he whispered, "Beware the one-legged man. If he ever finds me, it'll be the end of us all." Jim didn't know what to make of this cryptic warning, but the fear in Billy's eyes was real. Weeks passed, and Billy's presence became more of a burden than ever. He refused to pay his bills, yet his menacing demeanor kept Jim's parents from confronting him. The inn grew quieter as regular customers began to avoid the place altogether. Then, one fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the air grew cold, a new figure arrived at the inn. He was blind, with a cloak that dragged behind him and a stick that tapped rhythmically against the floor. "Where is Billy Bones?" the man asked, his voice low and unsettling. Jim froze. There was something sinister about this man, even though he couldn't see. Billy appeared in the doorway, and the blind man handed him a small piece of paper before leaving without another word. Jim watched as Billy unfolded the paper, his hands trembling. At the center was a single black dot. Billy's face turned pale as he gasped. The black spot. Before Jim could ask what it meant, Billy clutched his chest and collapsed to the floor. His lifeless eyes stared up at the ceiling. Jim called for his mother, and together they searched Billy's room. Under his bed, they found the iron chest. With trembling hands, they opened it to reveal bags of glittering gold coins, a pistol, and a mysterious roll of paper. Their discovery was interrupted by the sound of gunshots outside. Peering through the window, Jim saw shadowy figures approaching the inn. "It's the pirates!" his mother whispered, her voice trembling. They ran into the night, finding a group of policemen nearby who returned with them to the inn. By the time they arrived, the pirates had fled, but it was clear they had come for Billy's chest. Jim decided to take the paper to the squire, a respected man in the village named Mr. Trelawney. The squire examined the paper and revealed it to be a treasure map, marking the location of a legendary hoard called Flint's Fist. The squire, excited by the prospect of adventure, quickly organised an expedition. "Jim, you've been brave through all this. Would you join me?" Though nervous, Jim agreed. Days later, they set sail aboard the Hispaniola, a grand ship with a lively crew. Among them was Long John Silver, the ship's cook. He had only one leg, leaning on a crutch as he moved about. Jim immediately remembered Billy's warning. Could this be the one-legged man? But Silver was kind and cheerful, always ready with a story or a joke. Jim found himself liking him despite his suspicions. One night, however, while hiding in a barrel, Jim overheard Silver plotting with some crew members. They planned to seize the ship, steal the treasure, and kill the squire and his men. Heart-pounding, Jim quietly slipped away and told the squire and the captain. They decided to wait until they reached the island before confronting Silver. The island itself was wild and mysterious, with dense forests and rocky cliffs. Jim, eager to escape Silver's watchful eyes, wandered into the woods and stumbled upon a ragged man named Ben Gunn. Ben, a former pirate, had been marooned on the island for years. He was delighted to meet Jim and agreed to help him. Together, they watched as Silver's men clashed with the squire's group. Silver, desperate, found Jim and Ben in the woods and convinced them to help search for the treasure. Following the map, they reached a clearing where a large hole had already been dug. "Empty!" Silver roared in frustration. It was then that Ben revealed he had found the treasure long ago and hidden it elsewhere. The squire's men arrived shortly after, overpowering Silver's crew. To everyone's surprise, Silver apologized, promising to change his ways. Moved by his words, the squire spared him. The treasure was loaded onto the ship, and they set sail for home. True to his word, Silver became a friend to Jim, helping his family rebuild the inn and leaving his life of crime behind. The adventure changed Jim forever. He had seen danger, courage, and redemption. And though life returned to normal, the memories of Treasure Island stayed with him, a story he would tell for generations to come.